If you've watched Scotty Kilmer for any length of time, you know he's opinionated, loud, and not afraid to call a bad car a rolling pile of junk. But what makes Scotty interesting isn't just his rants, it's that he's willing to change his mind when the facts change. For a guy who's been fixing cars for over half a century, he's surprisingly quick to adjust his advice when technology proves itself. Today, we're going to look at 10 moments where Scotty did a full 180 on his views. Number 1. Turbocharged engines. Scotty Kilmer hates turbochargers. He'll always tell you to avoid them like the plague. In his eyes, a turbo wasn't just another part under the hood. It was a ticking time bomb. He'd warn about all the extra heat, the complex plumbing, the expensive repairs, and how the boost in power just wasn't worth the long-term headaches. For decades, his advice was simple. If you want your car to last, stick with a naturally aspirated engine. But as the auto industry shifted, so did Scotty's perspective. He started seeing real-world examples of turbocharged Toyotas and Hondas running strong for hundreds of thousands of miles without major issues, provided the owner took care of them. Good oil, timely changes, and proper warm-up habits made a huge difference. It was proof that when a turbo is engineered well and maintained properly, it doesn't have to be a money pit. These days, he still warns people about overly complicated turbo setups from brands with shaky reliability records. But he's the first to admit that a Toyota Camry or Honda Accord with a small, well-designed turbo can give you power and efficiency without destroying your wallet. Number 2. CVTs. Continuously variable transmissions. There was a time when Scotty wouldn't even say CVT without making a face. He called them glorified rubber bands and treated them like disposable transmissions that couldn't handle real mileage. Early CVTs were notorious for overheating, wearing out prematurely, and costing a small fortune to replace. For years, his advice was unwavering. If it's got a CVT, walk away. But over time, he started noticing a pattern. Not all CVTs were dying young. In particular, Toyota and Honda had figured out how to make them last. Better cooling systems, stronger internal parts, and smarter software programming meant their CVTs weren't self-destructing like the early ones from Nissan or other brands. Scotty even started pointing out that for drivers who don't abuse their cars, a well-built CVT can actually deliver smoother acceleration and better fuel economy without the constant fear of failure. He's still cautious, and he'll still tell you to avoid the problematic ones. But hearing Scotty give a nod of approval to a CVT from Toyota or Honda is a big shift from his avoid at all costs days. Number 3. Oil change intervals. For the longest time, Scotty was the high priest of 3,000-mile oil change. Didn't matter what you drove. Didn't matter what the manufacturer's manual said. If you asked him when to change your oil, he'd look you dead in the eye and say, every 3,000 miles, no exceptions. To him, fresh oil was the cheapest insurance you could buy, and going longer was just gambling with your engine's life. But as engines evolved and synthetic oil became the standard, the evidence started stacking up against the old-school rule. Modern synthetics don't break down nearly as fast, and tighter engine tolerances mean oil doesn't get contaminated as quickly. Scotty started to see newer cars easily going 5,000 to 7,000 miles without sludging up. He didn't switch sides overnight. You can tell he still has that better safe than sorry mindset. But these days he admits that under the right conditions, stretching oil changes a bit isn't a death sentence for your engine. His personal rule? If you want to squeeze the most life out of your car, change early. But if you've got a modern engine and high-quality oil, you're not going to blow it up going a few thousand miles past the old 3,000 mark. Number 4. Electric vehicles. If you think Scotty is a little skeptical about EVs now, you should have heard him 10 years ago. Back then, he saw them as an expensive science experiment with a built-in expiration date. He'd hammer home the fact that batteries would cost a fortune to replace, charging infrastructure was spotty, and the whole concept was more about government incentives than practical ownership. In his mind, EVs were for people with more money than sense. But as EV technology improved, so did Scotty's view. He began seeing certain models, especially those from brands that actually know how to build a solid car, holding up surprisingly well. Battery degradation wasn't always the nightmare he predicted, and for some drivers, the low maintenance and quiet ride made perfect sense. He's still far from the EV evangelist, and he's quick to point out the downsides, but now he openly admits there's a place for them in the market. For people who drive shorter distances, have easy access to charging, and understand what they're getting into, Scotty says an EV can actually be a smart choice. That's a long way from his overpriced toy days. Number 5. Korean cars, Hyundai and Kia. There was a stretch of time where if you mentioned Hyundai or Kia in front of Scotty, you'd get a look like you just suggested filling your gas tank with soda. He didn't just dislike them, he actively warned people to stay far, far away. In his eyes, these were cars built to look modern and shiny at the dealership, but once you drove them off the lot, the clock was ticking. He saw too many of them with engine problems, electrical gremlins, or interiors that fell apart before the car even hit 80,000 miles. And don't get him started on resale value. As far as Scotty was concerned, buying one was like throwing your money into a blender. But the thing about working on cars for decades is that patterns eventually become hard to ignore. Over the years, Scotty started meeting owners who had put serious mileage on their Hyundais and Kias without the catastrophic failures he'd expected. Some mid-2010s models like the Kia Soul, Hyundai Sonata, or Elantra were holding up better than he anticipated, provided they were taken care of. And while he's still quick to call out problem engines like the infamous Theta 2 with its oil burning and stalling issues, he's also the first to admit that not every Korean car is a disaster waiting to happen. These days, his advice is more nuanced. If you're shopping for a budget-friendly daily driver and stumble across a well-maintained Hyundai or Kia from a good year, it might actually be worth considering. He'll still tell you Toyota or Honda is the safer long-term bet, but he no longer sees Korean cars as automatic deal breakers. That's a big shift from the days when his advice boiled down to don't walk away, run. Number 6. Toyota Prius. When the Toyota Prius first hit the market, Scotty saw it as a complicated science project on wheels. The hybrid powertrain? Too many electronics. The battery pack? A guaranteed wallet buster down the road. And all that technology under the hood made him skeptical about its long-term durability. He'd often use the Prius as Exhibition A in why hybrids were too complex for the average car owner. But the more Priuses he saw in the real world, the more his opinions started to crack. Customers would pull into his driveway with first or second generation Priuses showing 200,000 miles or more, still running on their original battery packs. And unlike some modern hybrids loaded with cutting-edge tech that nobody knows how to fix, the Prius had something going for it: Toyota's reputation for overbuilding. The hybrid system was simple enough to service, and the engines themselves were surprisingly tough. Scotty started realizing that the horror stories about battery replacements weren't the norm. They were the exception. Sure, replacing a hybrid battery isn't cheap, but for many owners, that repair didn't even come up until the car had already saved them thousands in fuel over the years. Now, he says a well-kept used Prius, especially from the earlier generations, can be one of the smartest purchases out there, particularly for commuters or rideshare drivers who rack up serious mileage. His only warning? Don't buy one that's been abused or neglected, because fixing a badly maintained Prius can still be a financial nightmare. From too complex to last to one of the best deals if you find a good one. Scotty's flip on the Prius is proof that even the most skeptical mechanic can change his tune when the real-world evidence is too strong to ignore. Number 7. Buying new versus used. For most of his career, Scotty's advice on this topic was a brick wall. You could throw every argument at it, and it wouldn't budge. Never buy new was practically his slogan. He'd point out that the second you drove a new car off the lot, you'd lose thousands in depreciation. He'd say you were better off letting someone else take that hit, then swoop in a couple of years later to grab the car for far less. And in the used market of the early 2000s, he wasn't wrong. Back then, you could score a lightly used Toyota for a fraction of the price, and it would still have decades of life left. But then the pandemic happened. Supply chain issues, factory shutdowns, and a used car shortage sent prices skyrocketing. Scotty started seeing 2 or 3-year-old Toyotas selling for only a couple $1,000s less than their brand new counterparts, sometimes even more expensive. The math didn't add up anymore. And with Toyota's reputation for holding value, he realized that in certain cases, buying new might actually be a better financial move. These days, Scotty's advice comes with a twist. If you're buying a reliable brand like Toyota and you plan to keep it for a decade or more, buying new could actually make sense in this market. You get the full warranty, you know exactly how the car's been treated from day one, and you're not paying an inflated used car price for something with mystery miles. He's still quick to remind people that for less reliable brands, new or used doesn't matter. You're still buying trouble. But for the right car at the right time, he's not afraid to say go new. That's a far cry from his old hardline stance. Number 8. Timing chains versus timing belts. If you've been following Scotty long enough, you know he used to swear by timing chains. To him, they were the ultimate install and forget part. He'd compare them to timing belts and point out that belts needed replacement every 60 to 100,000 miles, while chains could last the life of the engine. His advice was simple: if you want fewer maintenance headaches, buy a car with a timing chain. But over time, Scotty started noticing a problem. Not all timing chains were created equal. Poorly designed tensioners, cheap plastic guides, and bad oil maintenance could turn a so-called lifetime chain into an expensive repair bill before 100,000 miles. He'd see chains stretch, slap against the guides, and even jump timing. All things he used to tell people were rare. And in some cases, replacing a chain was just as expensive, if not more, than replacing a belt. These days, Scotty still likes chains for their potential longevity, but he no longer treats them as bulletproof. He tells people to research the specific engine design before assuming a chain means maintenance-free. Some engines, like Toyota's tried-and-true 2.5-liter, have a chain system that can easily outlast the rest of the car. Others, not so much. He also reminds people that regular oil changes are critical for chain health, since the chain is lubricated by engine oil. Skip those and you might as well schedule your timing chain replacement in advance. From chains are always better to it depends on the design and how you maintain it, Scotty's shift here is another example of him updating his advice as real-world evidence comes in. Something you wouldn't expect from a mechanic with over 50 years in the game. But that's exactly why people still listen to him. Number 9. Fuel injector cleaner additives. For years, Scotty lumped every fuel system additive into one big bucket labeled snake oil. His stance was clear. They were nothing more than marketing gimmicks designed to separate car owners from their money. He'd say that if you used decent gasoline and maintained your car properly, you'd never need to pour some magic potion into your tank. In his book, a bottle of injector cleaner was no better than throwing $20 into the wind. But as more direct injection engines started showing up in his shop, Scotty noticed a trend. These engines, while great for performance and fuel economy, were prone to carbon buildup on the intake valves because fuel no longer washed over them like in port-injected systems. That buildup could cause rough idling, poor acceleration, and even engine misfires. While the best fix was still proper maintenance and occasional professional cleaning, Scotty began to admit that certain high-quality injector cleaners could help, especially in high-mileage cars that had never had a cleaning before. He still warns people not to waste money on bargain bin additives that promise miracles. But if you're driving a direct injection engine and you're starting to feel performance drop off, he now says it's worth trying a reputable cleaner, like the ones automakers themselves recommend. It won't fix a badly clogged engine, but it can help keep buildup from getting worse. That's a big shift from the days when he told everyone, "Don't bother, it's just snake oil." Number 10. High-mileage used cars. If you asked Scotty a decade ago whether you should buy a car with over 100,000 miles, his answer would have been a hard no. His reasoning was simple. The more miles on the car, the more wear and tear on every single component. Even if the engine was fine, something else like the transmission, the suspension, the electronics would likely fail soon. In his mind, crossing that 100K mark was a red flag that the car's best days were behind it. But over the years, Scotty saw something that made him rethink this blanket rule. And it came, unsurprisingly, from Toyota and Honda. These cars, when properly maintained, were racking up 150, 200, and even 300,000 miles while still running like champs. He realized that the real question wasn't how many miles does it have, but how was it cared for? A meticulously maintained Camry with 180K could easily outlast a neglected domestic sedan with half that mileage. Now, Scotty tells people not to fear the odometer as long as the service history is solid. He advises looking for evidence of regular oil changes, transmission services, and timing belt or chain replacements. If the car has been babied and comes from a brand known for longevity, those high miles might just mean you're getting a bargain. In other words, 100,000 miles isn't a death sentence anymore. At least not if you're shopping smart.